So if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you've probably seen me cover this topic, I believe 2 other times in the past. And you may ask yourself, well, Barry, you've kind of already done this video. Why are you doing it again? Well, here's the reality of it. And now going on 3 years since I've been doing this, a little over 3 years, there's certain trends that you see people do, and then certain ones that you think they do it, but they don't. And very few people, honestly, go back and go through your back catalog. Some will, but most don't. So the only way they're going to see a lot of videos you've done in the past is obviously when you subscribe to a channel, and I'd appreciate it if you subscribe if you like the content that I do. I think most of my subscribers watch most of my videos, so I've got a pretty loyal following, and I appreciate all of you for that. YouTube will kind of, occasionally put older videos out there, but I think this is such an important topic. And I estimated, I think I've probably grown 15 to 18,000 more subscribers since the last time I did this video. So I feel it's important to touch on again because I think it's a subject matter that really matters to a lot of people. And what I find is there's really 3 camps. There's one camp that just don't want to hear it any other way. They're going to view it the way they see it. Then there's another camp that's going to be like, I don't need that. This is 2025. There's no place for that anymore. And then you've got some that toy with it and enjoy doing it. And that's really the main reason that they do it. And this is just based on my experiences. I don't want to put anybody in a cookie cutter box. And so before I talk about that, I'm going to talk about some things today that are not, I repeat, not going to apply to everybody. So before you get upset at something I may say or not say, ask yourself, am I one of those people Barry was talking about? And the odds are there's a good chance yes. It's either going to be yes or there's going to be the placebo effect. And people, will convince themselves of anything if they tell themselves enough over and over. Learned a lot about human nature. I don't really care whether I upset somebody on this channel by when I say something because I'm always just going to give you my opinion. I repeat, this is my opinion. One guy out there who has been doing this for 4 decades and has been passionate, obsessed about it every single day of all of those 4 decades. And I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've bought into hype and got suckered into it only to realize it was just that, hype. And so today we're going to talk about the utilization of hardware, outboard gear, things like that. That's what today's subject is going to be about. As you can see, I've got a ton of it. I've got it back on both sides. Back over here, you can't see it, but there's a whole ton of it over here. I've got a lot of outboard gear that I've purchased over many, many, many years. Am I going to be a hypocrite in what I tell you today? Or am I going to tell you, you need to see it the way I need to see it? No, I'm just going to break it down to hard, cold truth the way I see it today. I enjoy working with analog hardware. And let me get this one point out of the way. When I'm saying analog hardware, I'm not talking about mic preamps or microphones. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about interfaces. Those are all crucial and very, very important. And I'm going to be huge advocates for absolutely investing your money in those whenever you get the opportunity and continue to try to take that to the next level. I'm always going to say that. It doesn't always necessarily apply, but I think if you can, you should at least try it to know whether it's right for you. But I'm talking about compressors, EQs, things like that that are used heavily in a lot of studios. You'll see today that a lot of kind of, let's say, famous mixing engineers, because back in the day, the recording engineers who were the ones making the magic, not the mix engineers, but today it's the mix engineers because we don't record the way we used to in the past. It's nothing like it was. When I say in the past, 60s, 70s, 80s, things like that. But, and that's a live band and they're tracking all at the same time. That's rarely done anymore. So there's a lot of skill that goes into really finding that right sound going in so that when it comes time to mix, it almost mixes itself. So a lot of the mix engineers' work is done. But today we do it differently, often one track at a time, or maybe we track drums and then we just do each track on its own after that. So by the time it gets to these mix engineers, they'll all say they've all moved away from hardware. They're all doing it in the box today. And for the most part, I do believe that is accurate. But I will give you a perspective to consider. These people are in business where time is money. And they've learned a lot of things about the listener, the person who's actually going to listen to it. And they've learned, quite frankly, that they couldn't tell the difference. I'm talking about your average person out there. There's always going to be exceptions to this. Your average person out there is really not going to notice. And even if it is better per se, they'll certainly accept what I give them and they'll just deal with it, right? Because it's so much cheaper time-wise, and time equals money. The faster they can get through a project, the sooner they can get to the next project, and the more money that they can make. Because we all know in this industry anymore, there's very little money to be made. I'm talking about real money, where you're making $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, that kind of stuff, which is not uncommon back in the day. But today, there's very, very few people doing that. There are people doing it, but very, very few. So when we take a look at hardware, we're going to talk about what is really the difference. What am I going to gain by doing this? Let's say I don't really care about the experience. I don't care about any of those things. Is my end result really going to matter whether I stay strictly in the box or I go outboard gear? Well, let's talk about most folks out there. Most folks, I want all of you watching remembering you may be at a particular level in your journey in this whole thing, right? But remember, the majority of people are just kind of bedroom warriors. They're sitting at home. They want to record their own music. Maybe they have these dreams of writing the next big hit song, whatever that may be. But they don't have a lot of money. They can't afford a lot. And so for you folks out there, absolutely just don't worry. Do not worry about hardware, okay? Outboard EQ, outboard compressors, and the things like. Don't worry about them. Do your stuff in the box. Just do it in this box. Master what you can in the box. Too many people make the mistake before they've even mastered the art of getting a great sounding recording, which ends up to a great sounding mix, 100% in the box. If you can't do that, you have no business, in my opinion, unless you just got a ton of money and you want to throw it around. Sure, go ahead, knock yourself out. But a lot of people aren't in that situation. Most people probably aren't. Then you're going too soon. Now, once you've gotten that, you feel like, I need to take this up a notch. I need to take it to the next level. I wonder if I start doing it with this outboard EQ and compressor and bought a really killer channel strip, is that really going to make a difference to really help me take it further in my journey with all of this? And so the answer is yes, and the answer is no. And I'll kind of break that down in a second. But for right now, until you've mastered the art of doing everything you can and really can achieve outstanding results 100% in the box, then do that. Once you've got that, then take a look at matching the right microphone for whoever you're recording. Not, maybe you're not the singer. Maybe you've got a duo and you guys are just kind of going back and forth and contributing to some music and things like that. There's no one size fits all microphones. That's another mistake people make. And there's really a lot of compelling gear, both outboard hardware as well as microphones, as well as mic preamps that really clone the originals. Now, of course, none of them are the originals. Don't kid yourself. I don't care what sound versions you hear out there. None of them are the original. They're just not. But they can get in the zone of it. They can get pretty close. Heritage Audio is one that I like a lot. Probably my favorite of the lesser expensive with that. Stam Audio does a fantastic job, but you got to be patient waiting for them. And there's, of course, this Audioscape that's, less than 100 miles here from where I live, over in the coast on the East Coast of Florida. So a lot of great manufacturers of that stuff that can really do a bang-up job. But you want to match that right microphone for the singer you're doing. Or if you happen to be recording different singers and you want to get a fairly run-of-the-mill, like a U47 clone or something along those lines, maybe you get one from Warm Audio. I've got some that I'm going to be testing here coming up that cover the price range. You're going to see that probably over the next month, and you'll see some of that coming up. So, but you kind of want to investigate a lot of that and everything. So So if you are going to invest money, try it there. See what kind of a difference it makes for you. But you need to know what you're doing. You need to know what to listen for and what the differences that you're actually hearing. If you don't have a well-trained ear, are you really going to notice that big of a difference in the microphone preamps of your recording interface than you are, let's just say, a Neve clone? Maybe, maybe not. Probably a lot of people don't, or they're going to hear things that aren't really there. So you say, Barry, well, if you do it all in the box, why not just stay in the box? I think for a lot of people, that's where you need to stay. That's my honest opinion. I think for a good large portion of people, that's where you should stay. So Barry, are you saying that there's no advantage to adding some killer EQs and some compressors and things like that to the whole recording process as well as the mixing process? Are you trying to tell me that that's not going to make it sound better? No, I'm not telling you that at all. It will. If you get the right gear, it's going to make it sound better. There's no doubt about that. It is going to make it sound better, in my opinion. Obviously, I feel that way. I got a lot of stuff here. I got a lot, probably too much, to be honest with you, but I've got a lot of it. I rarely get rid of something. Well, I'll get rid of something if I go forever and don't use it, but most everything in here is used on a regular basis. I'm a huge fan of Tegler Audio. I've got quite a few pieces here in the studio, and I absolutely love this company. They're priced right for what you're getting, but they're not in the warm audio price range, as an example, which I've got some warm audio gear in here as well, and they make some great stuff too. I wish the quality was somewhat better, but ultimately they do good things, and I have them here in the studio. So if you're going to go down that road, understand, yes, it's going to make it sound better, but the hard, cold reality is people just don't consume music the way they used to. When I was coming up, you waited to get the album, the entire recording. You listened to every song on that. You compared it. I remember being blown away the first time I heard the first Boston record, because that production was on a whole new level. And if you couldn't tell the difference, you didn't have ears. Same thing with a lot of Pink Floyd stuff. That thing was so meticulous. Steely Dan. Now, a lot of these people, many of you watching, have never even heard of probably. Those have been around a while, like myself. You know exactly who I'm talking about. But you can always tell the difference in when people take the time to really do it right, and where it makes a huge, huge, huge difference. The thing that digital does, and we've gotten better with it, there are plugins that can kind of get us more in the zone, but you don't get that warmth, that natural glue, that natural compression that you get with tape, along with some killer analog hardware. And so I'm always going to be an advocate in my studio for it. But would I go into debt for it? No, I wouldn't. I just don't think your return on investment is there anymore. I just don't. And if I were doing it all over again, if I were starting as a young person today, I would probably invest in a good channel strip, a good outboard EQ, a good compressor, good microphone preamp, pair that up with a great mic, and I would make some killer music with just that. And I might spend $2,500 to $3,000 on that killer channel strip. That might be worth it. Well, I don't know. It might be. It would be, in my opinion. But the art is on the capturing on the way in, to where in a perfect world, if you can capture great on the way in, mixing shouldn't be very hard at all. It should actually be quite easy. Where the mixing you're doing is more creative than it is anything else. Because even though some of us went through the whole time during the loudness wars where everything was compressed so much, I still go back and listen to a lot of that music, and I feel like I've got pins and needles sticking in my ears, like they're destroying this music. They're just squashing it so much. There's no life in it. But thank God that, most have gotten away from that, and they're not doing that anymore. But the production levels have gone off the charts with a lot of these things, or they're very simple arrangements, very simplistic approach too. And so there's only so much you're going to do with that. That's really about finding space, learn how to EQ properly, pairing the right microphones with the right instruments, the right voices, things like that, to really get that great music. Because a lot of it's done all in virtual instruments and everything today. And so it just depends on what vein you're in. So there's no cookie cutter, all of this. But If you're thinking that investing a ton of money in outboard gear is really going to transition and make your tracks be more appealing to the end listener, the odds are probably no. I'm going to tell you flat out, for the most part, no. Is it going to sound better to you? Yes. Is it going to sound better to your studio buddies? Yes. Is it going to sound better to the audiophiles? How many of those are even out there anymore? Very, very few. As far, we all grew up with these massive stereos, receivers, cassette decks. I remember when CDs came out. Wow, boy, I'm old. But most of you don't know what a CD is anymore. Oh, how funny that is. But anyway, I've always stayed up to date on technology. I always have. I've been obsessed with it every step of my life. Every step along the way, I've been really obsessed with it. So anyway, I think it's an important message. I think it's an important topic. Again, this is my opinion only. And you can take that for what it's worth. I think it's good advice. I think it's pretty solid. I think I make a pretty darn good case. And again, if I've offended some of you, well, you're going to have to get over it, I guess. There's no way in the world I'm going to make everybody happy. And I don't do this channel to make anybody happy. I do people to give my opinion and tell people what I think. And if it upsets a few, then it upsets a few. Again, ask yourself, like I said in the beginning, what I'm trying to say does not apply to everybody. There are always exceptions to everything, okay? So just consider that before you get all ready, fire, aim down in the comment section. You can say whatever you want. I don't really care. But until next time, whatever you decide, wherever your journey takes you, I hope that you're able to make music that brings you joy, okay? That makes you feel like I've done a great job. And if you feel like you haven't sometimes, just keep plugging away, keep plugging away, keep plugging away. Don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Sometimes you may have to write 1,000 songs to get one good one, but you can say, I got one good one. Now write 1,000 more and you have 2. 1,000 more, you have 3. Then you'll find it doesn't take 1,000. It only maybe takes a couple hundred. And you figured it all out for you. All right. Until next time, hope every one of you have a great day. Bye-bye.